So today is day 2. We're going to be talking about suicide prevention. I hope all of you received slides and the recording for day 1. Yeah. So today we're going to do a very quick recap on the continuum that we talked about last time. I added a slide into the PowerPoint if you had a chance to look at it, which really simplifies the continuum. It makes it far more easy. So we'll just look at that briefly. Then we will be covering suicide. We will be talking about what it is. We will be talking about its causes. We will be talking about how we can see warning signs of suicide. And the most important part, how we as helpline professionals can prevent suicide. Yeah. So just to recap about the continuum, we talked about it as being like a scale. We said that, we had the scale, and we said that, on one side of the scale, we have wellness, we have health, and then on the other side, we have illness, right? And it's a continuum, so you can move in between the continuum. And what moves us between the continuum is causes of stress. Yeah. How we are able to manage that stress. And one more piece that I didn't really talk about last time, which is awareness. So one thing is that when we go through stressors in life, we usually intuitively, instinctively also manage that stress. Yeah. And so then we move back towards the wellness side of the continuum. Another thing that really helps is awareness, right? So if we know that what we're going through right now is a stressor, for instance, if we have the awareness that if you lose a loved one, if a family or a friend passes away, that's a stressor that we go through. If you know that divorce is a stressor, if you know that the pandemic is a stressor, if you know that work-life imbalance isn't good for you, then you will probably take more steps to effectively manage your stress. So awareness is really, really useful. But many people, without even having awareness, instinctively do things to manage stress. So for instance, if we are under stress, if we are feeling worried about something, if we're feeling anxious about something, if we're feeling sad about something, we might share it, with our mother, with our wife, with our friend. So that's something we do already. We're already managing our stress, right? We may not even have the awareness that we're going through stress, but we might do that. So that's one thing I wanted to point out that got left out. And then, as you remember, we said that the other thing that can change where we land on the continuum in the first place are things like genetics, whether we go through childhood trauma. If we have been through a brain injury, then we might kind of, just pick ourselves up from the top, from the leftmost side of the continuum and move to the injury side or the illness side of the continuum, right? So we said some of these causes can move where we stand. And then a really important piece, and that's the last thing I'm going to say about this, is social support, right? So now this is not something that we're doing ourselves. It's not coming from within us. It's coming from outside, from other people, right? So if we have people around us who we can talk to, share our problems with, or make us feel like, we belong in this group of people, we belong in this group of friends, we belong in this organization, we belong in this family or in this school, then we might feel better. Or if we just kind of show acts of care for the person, then they will feel supported, right? And there are many other ways that you can make someone feel supported. As helpline professionals, we also come under social support. So we are also a form of support. We are also one of the ways in which someone can move from one point to the other in the continuum. So really, we have a very powerful role to play. Yeah, and as many of you talked about last time, many of you said that, all we need to do is listen, show them that we're there and be there for them, and they will feel supported. Yeah. Any questions, comments before we move on to talking about suicide prevention?
Yes, Alize, I have a question regarding this slides. The chart which you mentioned in next slide, can you please open this table?
Are you talking about the longer slide of the continuum?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't have it in this PowerPoint, but you can ask me that.
Okay. Yeah, in that point, the second column which shows reactive or reversible distress, in which nightmares have causes of stress. So in this point, I have some questions about like how nightmare can cause stress or distress for any person. The one point is nightmare, and the second question regarding injury side, like in which the point is mentioned workaholic behavior. So workaholic behavior is also causes for some mental illness.
Okay, thank you for your questions. So a nightmare, I think it may be showing nightmare as a sign of stress. It's true, of course, if you're having nightmares, that's going to cause you stress also. You're going to feel like, upset about it, and it might disturb your sleep. It might make you worried. So it can also cause stress, but I think over there it's showing it as a sign of stress. So sometimes when we go through a trauma, then we can have nightmares about it. I believe children have nightmares, and that is sometimes a sign of healthy anxiety. It's not a sign of mental illness. So I just want to also differentiate between those two things. Okay. And if you want to talk about it in more detail, we can talk about it in more detail during our supervision sessions as well. The other thing you said, how can workaholism cause stress? So, if you remember, we said poor work-life balance can be a prolonged stress. So when it comes to causes of stress or stressors, or life events that bring stress, we talked about if it's a one-time stress that's very intense, or if it's not such a big stress, it's less intense, but if it stays for a long period of time, then that can really contribute towards developing a mental illness. So workaholism, it's a lifestyle, right? It's a lifestyle that continuously causes stress on the person. If you're working really long hours, you might not be getting enough sleep, you might not be eating well, you might be not exercising, putting a lot of load on your brain, not really participating in your relationships, and so taking support. So all of that can add up over time. Yeah. So our lifestyle is really, really important when it comes to having good wellness. Any other questions, comments? Okay. So let's move into our new topic for the day, which is suicide prevention, right? So we're going to go through, I'm going to share some things with you, and you will tell me if this is a myth or if it's a fact, okay? So the first one is, suicide only affects individuals with a pre-existing mental illness. So if you already have a mental illness, only then you may attempt suicide. Is this a myth or is it a fact? And if you don't know, that's totally fine. You can take a guess. This is just for the purpose of discussion and for the purpose of introducing our topic.
I think it's going to be a myth.
You think it's going to be a myth? Why do you say that? Do you have any guesses as to?
Because I've been in that situation before. I never had any problems mental, but it came to one part of my life where I committed suicide way back in 2000. So I don't believe that individuals who has pre-existing mental illness can only be the one who will cause suicide. It will just came along. You'll never know. So for me,
Thank you
Mixed
so much for
depends.
sharing that, Shari. Yeah, yeah. Anybody else want to?
Can
Yeah.
I? Sorry, Sherry. I bet to disagree. I think that is a fact. Because it doesn't mean you have mental illness. Again, doesn't mean you are not. You are insane. You are crazy. It's just that you're going through some stress. You're going through some problems. So maybe because you cannot handle it anymore, you want a. You're thinking of your mind cannot bear the problems, the pain that you're going through. So you're thinking of having a very fast solution of having suicide, committing suicide. Because if you are, I cannot say, but this is the term. If you are, in my opinion, if you are on your right state of mind, you will deal with your problem and you will not commit suicide. But that doesn't mean you're crazy. Again, mental illness doesn't mean you're insane or you're crazy or you're, that's a different thing. It's just that
Yeah.
you are not mentally healthy. Sorry for that.
Thank you, Annie. Anybody else want to comment? Anybody else?
I think, yeah, can I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a fact because when pre-existing mental illness occur, then individual has effect to attempt to suicide. So it's about effects when a person has a mental illness which is pre-existing, then that person have tendency to do suicide. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So I would say none of you are wrong. So it says suicide can have many causes, such as death of a loved one, losing a job or a business, sexual abuse, bullying, and there are others. So you can say that, when someone goes through one of these traumatic events or major high intensity causes of stress, that they experience depression or they experience other very painful emotions, and they come into a position where they cannot cope anymore. And therefore they commit, or therefore they die by suicide, or they attempt suicide. So what this point is really trying to say, that you don't have to already have a mental illness, and then one of these factors happens to you and you attempt suicide. What it's saying is that you could be free of a mental illness, you could be well, but one of these things could happen to you and then you could attempt suicide. Yeah. Annie, do you agree with that? Ashfaq, do you agree with that or disagree?
Yes, I agree. You have a point on that.
Ashfaq,
I'm sorry, is it Ashfaq Senior or Ashfaq Junior? I don't know.
Hello, Ashfaq Senior.
Ashfaq,
Assalamu alaikum,
yeah.
sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to just burst in. Sorry, I was late. I'm still monitoring a call with Faria. So please continue. Hi, everybody.
Hello, sir.
Mr. Group
Yes,
photo.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, sir Ashfaq.
No, sir.
I have two headsets on my ears. One
Okay.
I'm listening to Faria, and the other I'm in the group. So
Okay,
don't mind me, please.
sure. Okay. Coming back, Ashfaq Junior, do you want to say anything? And sorry that we've named you Ashfaq Junior.
It's okay. Uh, you say about
So would you agree with what I just said? That the person doesn't have to already have a mental illness, but they could be well and some major trauma could happen, and then they could be in a state which leads them to attempt suicide. Would you agree or disagree?
yeah. Sometimes people who have mental trauma, he or she sometimes since they have tendency to do suicide because they don't get support from family or socially, and even in terms of girl in our country or South Asian countries, usually we see that they won't share anything to her surroundings people, and they usually feel shy. In that case, they won't share anything to family or even close friend, and which is not good for her. And as a result, they may try to attempt suicide.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Is this a myth or a fact? Does talking about suicide increase the chances a person will act on it?
Yes, I sorry.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Yes, I do agree with this because people tend to talk about that they're going to do that they're going to do suicide because it tends to be a warning actually to the person around them that I'm gonna take suicide. But most of the times, the person that will hear about this will just take it as a joke sometimes or will not take it seriously.
So,
And
Nicole, that's another one that we have coming up. This,
oh,
this no, I should have clarified. This one is saying that if you talk to, so after what you said, if a person shares that they are thinking about taking their life, should you talk about it or should you not talk to them about it? Should you be quiet or should you talk to them about it?
it depends on the person. It depends on the personality or the character of a person. If they want to talk about it, they will talk. But most of the person that I've encountered,
Should you as the listener talk to them about the fact that they want to die or not? That's the question.
no, I would rather ask them what the problem is, so that because when someone is attempting to do suicide, there is something that, or there is a problem that is unsolved, there is an unsolved problem within them. Then I think that is what I want to ask first, then um like give her or him a hint or give them an idea more on the suicide thing. So not mentioning about suicide when you are talking with someone um might be like less might be a lesser chance for the person to take suicide, because he might be just want to talk with someone, want to share, want to open up his problem. And when the person will be able to open up, that will be the time that he or they might realize that I think I can still talk out, solve out my problems before doing
Yeah.
that thing.
Yeah, yeah, very true. What do other people think?
I'm
Uh,
sorry.
uh,
Oh.
can I add?
I think three people said something. So, okay. So Shahrukh is saying no. If we talk about suicide, it will increase the chance for him, her to act on it. Instead, we need to divert them and try to open them up to know the reason. Okay. Others, what do others think? So there's Emma and there's Anzala.
Yeah,
Go
for
ahead.
me, yep. For me, talking about suicide to that person, it will give you more trigger. You will trigger him or her to do such a thing. Uh, um, Rather you just dig deeper. You just talk to them about what are they going through, maybe, so that we can deeper the feelings. I mean, we can dig them so that they will have a opportunity to talk to us. It will come, we will calm them. Then maybe after that, a better result. He will not think about the suicide anymore.
Okay. Anzala?
As per my perspective, please correct if I'm wrong, but as per my perspective, there are both sides of negative or positive. I am mentioning both sides that if we are talking with like a counselor or a good person, so the chances of suicide will be decreasing. But as a unlike scenario, if we are talking with some uh, toxic or some unknown person who is not aware with the situation, so maybe it will increase the chances of suicide.
Excellent. So I think all of your points are really valid. So it says here, can someone read this out? My screen is being cut off. Can anyone please read it out?
It says, talking about suicide may reduce rather than increase thoughts about suicide. It increases the chance that the person will seek help. Starting the conversation helps people find an alternative view of their existing circumstances.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Shahir. So I think what many of you said is right. So you said that, try to find out what are the issues, what are the problems that are leading to it, right? So that is right. Because if someone talks about the issues in their life, they might, reach a new solution, or they might start to think about it from a different perspective, right? That's why we do active listening. So that is a good thing. That is the right thing to do. And also what Anjala said is completely right. It really depends on who is talking to the person and what they're saying, right? So if you're approaching it in an understanding, supportive way, then the person could feel better by talking to you. If you approach it from a very judgmental way or a critical way or a shaming way, then the person will not open up about their issues or about the fact that they want to commit suicide. And in fact, they may also feel worse about themselves. It may add to their distress. What studies say, what the experts say is that do talk to the person about suicide as well. So if someone tells you that they are thinking of suicide or they want to die, have a conversation with them about it, because when they share with you what's in their mind, then you may be able to help them. And the same way as when you talk about their issues, they may, as they talk about it, reach another viewpoint. They might reach a solution, they might reach another viewpoint. So it's good to kind of talk about it. You might, win their trust, right? They might share with you some ways that they might be thinking, which could be very harmful for themselves. So as we go further on in this training, we learn that one of the reasons why, one of the warning signs that people attempt suicide is they might think that they're a burden. Nobody wants them around. And in fact, their being alive is causing problems for other people. So if you talk to them about the fact that they're thinking about suicide and you ask them, okay, so you're thinking about suicide, please tell me more about that. They might say, yes, the reason why I want to do it is because there's no reason for me to be alive because of XYZ. And if you start to talk to them about that and get them to see that actually that's not the case, then you're helping them. Versus if you never really approach the topic, if they say that we're thinking of dying or we want to die, and you just, change the subject, then there will never be that opportunity to open up about it. Yeah. So the next one is people who say they are going to take their own life are just attention seeking and shouldn't be taken seriously. So is this a myth or a fact?
Can I?
Yes.
I think this is a fact in a way, because that will bring us an alert when someone is stating that, giving us that statement. Doesn't matter if he's just making a joke, and it depends on the conversation. But on our situation, receiving calls with someone who needs help, I think that should alarm us, because that's a hint. That's a hint that cannot be taken for granted. We cannot say that, oh, it's just a slip of tongue. He just said that. He's just a bully. He just wants to seek attention. No, that's, even though it's just a slip of tongue, we should take advantage of that. When the caller started mentioning that, we can try to open the conversation so he can open up. We can open a portal for that, and because it didn't start from us. It started from the caller saying that statement, and then we can take advantage of it. That should alarm us, but not to the point that we're going to dig it in too much, but at least give attention when he says that. So I don't think so that it's just attention seeker person.
But you said, okay, so you said from the hotline perspectives, from the hotline person's perspective, you have to take it seriously, right? You have to
give attention. Even so,
yeah.
So for me, it's a fact. You cannot take it as a myth. It's not a joke. Someone's giving a joke. It's just like in an airport when someone's joking about the bomb. You cannot just take it easily, right?
Yeah, of course. So what this quote is saying is that commonly we say that if someone says that, oh, I'm going to kill myself.
Oh, that's a different situation.
That it's attention seeking, that they don't mean it. They're just trying to draw attention to themselves.
Oh, I must agree.
Like in our culture, often they might say drama kar raha hai, that he's acting or she's acting, right? So Annie, do you agree with that?
That's a different perspective. When you say that we're having conversation, friends conversation, people just saying around us, saying, I should kill myself. I must commit suicide because of my situation. When it's just a slip of tongue and it's just a normal situation, I must say it's just a myth. It's just attention, not really to the point that attention seeking, but a slip of tongue. But if it's in a help hotline perspective, I must say that is not an attention seeker person.
Okay, thank you. What do other people think? Layla, you had your hand up. You're on mute. So we can't hear you. Can other people hear her?
You speak
No,
again,
not at all.
Viola. We cannot hear you, like.
Still can't hear you. Maybe try without your headphones. Does anybody else want to share anything?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So for me, it's a myth because I have someone like whom I've known. She's my best friend, and she used to, like say that, okay, I'm going to take my own life because of all the stress that's happening in my life. And she used to keep on saying that to us. And we, in the beginning, we didn't really take it seriously. So we would give her, like we would try to talk it out from her and stuff like that. Even after that, we got to know that she actually attempted suicide. Like she took some pills. So then she was taken to the hospital and then washed. Like her body was washed out. So she's fine now, alhamdulillah. But that's what I wanted to mention, that it's a myth. Like people, if they're not saying it for just attention seeking, and I know it from my experience, and they should be taken seriously.
Thank you for sharing that, Ida. Emma, you had your hand up.
For me, as for my experience, I also have some friends. For me, it's a fact. Because I have some friends also, they also like to talk. When they say these things, it means they don't want that thing. I mean, like for us, example, I say, um, it's okay. You don't need to come. I don't need your, I don't need your, I don't need you to come. But on the other hand, I want you to come. Uh, but of course, suicide is different. It's a different matter. Suicide, we need to take it seriously, I think it's depend on the person. When we know the person, maybe because we know the person, we know their attitude also. But for us in our work, it's a myth, of course. We need to take it seriously. It's a different matter. But for me, for my experiences, a lot of my friends only talk, but they don't mean it.
So you're saying that they say it, but they don't mean it. That's what you're saying?
Yes, some of my friends are like that.
And you said that, they say do not come, but what they mean is do come. Is that what you
Yes. Yes, opposite
mean?
of their feelings
Mm.
of what they are saying.
Mm. So, okay, so even though they are saying they don't want your support, they actually do want your support?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Sherry, you want to say something?
For me, it's a case-to-case basis. It's a case-to-case case. I've been there, and I've had some relatives who actually died because of suicide. So, the latest relative that I had that had suicide, she just said, "I'm strong, but I'm tired." So when
She said what? Sorry?
she said on Facebook that I am strong, but I am tired. So we know that there is something going on. We keep on talking. However, we were so late to attend to her. So she's already dead. Right? So some people will actually say um, say it differently. They might mean it. They might not mean it. So it's really a case to case scenario for me. So based on my experience, it actually depends on the person because a person committing suicide, they don't have feelings. They just want to get out of the pain, the sufferings, and everything. They will not even care whoever's gonna get hurt if they were already dead, or So it's really saddening. It's really heartbreaking, heartbreaking actually, to be honest. So for me, it's a case to case. I cannot say it's a myth. I cannot say it's a fact. So I'm in between. So it's for me, it's a case to case.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can add one thing. Yeah, my perception is same. I second with Sherry, like what she said about depend on case to case. Like in some cases, it's total myth. Like we cannot just go away and just we should not be taken seriously, just slip off their tongue. But this case, we just do with their loved ones or with those human beings that are familiar with us. But for a stranger or like our services, we have to be pay more attention to that cases. Like in our consular services, we should take it as a myth and we should consider their word of mouth.
Thank you. I'm really glad that this sparked so much debate. That was, and I really like how everyone is really open and honest about their opinions. That's really what we need. So it says here, it may well be that they want attention in the sense of calling out for help, and helping them get support may save their life. So it's always important to take seriously and handle sensitively anyone who talks about it. So I think other than if somebody jokes about it, right? So there are so many degrees of this, right? So firstly, sometimes people are purely joking. And even then we cannot always be sure that they're joking. But that's also kind of why we need to start, like, kind of stop joking about mental health terminology, like, oh, I'm OCD, or, I really like to keep things clean, I'm so OCD, or, oh, that, you're being so bipolar, your moods are shifting constantly, or, oh my God, why did I do that? I'm going to kill myself. We need to not joke about these things. One, because they're factually incorrect. When you have OCD or you have bipolar disorder, it makes you often makes you dysfunctional, or it affects areas of your life to the point where it can be disabling, right? Remember we talked about dysfunction versus distress last time. So if something is so severe for somebody, it's definitely not what you're going through, right? What you're joking about. So it's important not to joke about it so that people can start to tell jokes from seriousness apart, right? So sometimes people are purely joking. And then other times people may say that I want to kill myself, or I feel like dying, or other things. And they mean it. Other times they might be saying it and we don't know. Yes, they could be it could be a way of calling out for attention, but why are they calling out for attention? Sure, their call for attention might be unhealthy. They might be trying to scare the other person into paying attention to them. But it's because what do they need? They need that person's attention. They need that person's support. They need that person's care. So that need is clearly there, right? And it's important for us to provide it. It's important for us to be there for that person. You know, we talked about when somebody is in high amounts of distress, or somebody is going through a mental illness, or they've been through a lot, then they may start, I guess we haven't really talked about this as yet, so I'm thinking of the best way to explain this. So basically, obviously, it would have been better for you, the listener, let's say you're the listener, it would have been better for you if, you know, the speaker said to you that, I'm not feeling so good. I would really like some support from you, right? And then you might feel more kind of willing to give them your support. However, if you say that, you know, if you threaten to kill yourself, then you, the listener, and especially if you don't think it's real, you might be a bit angry, you might be a bit frustrated, you might be a bit deceived, you might say this person is just, you know, acting out, they just want attention. And you may not listen to them, right? But the fact remains that that person needs support, they need help, they're not expressing it in a healthy way or a straightforward way. And that could be because of something else that they're going through. It could be a result of past trauma. It could be because they have no faith in relationships. It could be because your relationship with them is broken down. It could be many, many, many reasons. But the fact remains that person needs help, and that doesn't change. Does that make sense? Any questions, comments? Okay. Hi, Fariha. Oh, you're on mute.
Hello, Lise. Sorry for late joining.
Not at all. How was your call?
Yes, it was good, but it was a detailed call. 1 hour and 42 minutes about.
Ah, okay. Looking forward to hearing more about it later.
Okay.
So the next one is most suicides happen suddenly without warning. So Nicole, now this goes to what you were talking about.
Yes, that is what I mentioned earlier, because this is all it. This actually, like what I've said earlier, this depends on the character of the person, because but most of the suicide victims tells someone, or they share some to someone, or they tell someone that I'm gonna end my life, something like that. They do give a warning, but I'm not saying that all of the suicide victims are giving warnings. There are still some that are not giving warnings. I do, um, yeah, because way back, I was still a student. I think that was 5 years ago. I was also on the type of suicide, and but I do give warnings. But thank God, I was able to get help way back, and then I was also aware of this because one of our relatives, our uncle, he didn't give any warnings. He was happy that morning. He asked for a cup of coffee from me, and then suddenly, um, right after I gave him the coffee, I went back to buy something from the store, and then after I get back from the house, he just committed suicide. So it doesn't make sense because he didn't share anything from anyone, from me, from our grandmother. He didn't tell us anything or shared anything. That's why it's a case to case basis. Also depends on the personality of the person.
Thank you for sharing that, Nicole. I'm sorry to hear that. Lela?
Okay, so most suicides happen suddenly without a warning. That is a myth because, in my opinion, I believe that yesterday when you showed us the mental health continuum, in there the person like which person is reacting, so they'll be impatient or irritable or angry or something like that. They can't sleep properly. So these are the things that um, maybe they will not speak to you or speak to anyone that they want to commit suicide or they're having mental illness, but they will be reacting. So they will have some symptoms which the family members or friends who are very close to the person, it's their responsibility to notice these things and then give him what he really needs. So I do believe that there are some warnings before a person commits suicide, no matter what his personality is.
Thank you. So, yes, you both are correct. Most people, not all people, but most people who die by suicide show warning signs beforehand. Yeah. And today we're going to be studying what those warning signs are so that we as well can participate in identifying when someone is at risk of suicide and preventing that suicide. Yeah. Okay, last one. People who are suicidal want to die. They are selfish, cowards, or weak.
I agree.
Sorry, Sherry? What
I-
did you say?
I said I agree with that. Because,
You
for
agree
me,
with this?
yes.
Yeah.
Because
Tell me more.
when I tried to kill myself before, I was so calm. I was so good. I didn't want to face whatever it is that is blocking me. So I think that's correct. Strong people will not commit suicide. They will face everything on their full power. But for me, I'm really empowered at the time back then. So yeah, they can also be called selfish because they will not even care whether you are actually um they would not care about what the other people will actually feel when you are dead, when you're already gone. You will not even think about your family, your loved ones. They're gonna get hurt if you die. So you're selfish. You just want to just get away from it without even thinking what will be the people around you, the ones who support you. So yeah, I think these three words like selfish, cowards, are three perfect words to describe someone. For me, it's my opinion.
Thank you, Sherry. Anybody else?
Alice? Yeah. Based on the scale that you showed us, that you showed to us yesterday, I guess there's a part of it, yeah, that they are cowards and weak. But we're not attacking them. We're just saying the situation. They are selfish because you said that I forgot the chart. What do you call that on the green part of the chart? Wherein there are people not showing because they can handle their stress, they can handle their problems, so they are not showing any symptoms that they're going to the end of the scale, wherein they're going to have this mental illness, or they're going too much stress. There are people who can handle it. So I think on that part there are people who has strong personality, who can handle maybe the support of the family and people around him are there. That's why. So that makes a person stronger. Cowards, I'm not sure. I'm not yet in that situation. I don't know. Sometimes I'm thinking of people, how could a person could commit suicide? Wherein if I'm going to cut my finger or just hurt myself, I'm so scared. I'm so scared getting suffocated. I'm so scared getting hurt. How do people were able to do that? Sometimes I have that question in my mind. So I'm not sure for being coward, because I'm thinking that I'm not sure. This is a question. I'm not sure how. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think more about it, but maybe because they are not in their own, you know, they are not. They are not. They are unconsciously doing that because they are hopeless. Their mind are, you know, they are not thinking right that time. Selfish in a way, yes, for me. I have my cousin who commits suicide, and they are orphan, and there are only two left in the family, and she commits suicide, and she left her baby brother who's only 8 years old. So I'm so sad that she didn't think about it. You know, it should be her brother who gave her strength, but she's so selfish. But I don't want to judge her. It's just how I feel about it. This is not general opinion. It's just me. Um, I'm just thinking that you're so selfish, not thinking of what people around you will feel about you going away from us. You know, you don't even think that we will miss you, or we will look for you in you know, that we love you, that we will get hurt when you leave us, when you left this world, like that. So yeah, in a way, yes, yes. I must say yes. You know, yeah, like that.
So I just want to say that Annie and Cherry, both of you, and many of you have shared, your perceptions are not only shaped by, you know, someone who's not directly affected by the issue, right? There's a difference between someone who is not directly affected by this issue and someone who is directly affected by this issue. So Sherry, you shared that you've been there yourself, right? You've considered it yourself. And Annie, you have a family member who died by suicide, right? And it's a cousin of yours, I think you said. And you will have feelings for the people that the cousin left behind, right? Sherry, you might have guilt about what you did. So these feelings will affect the way that you both feel about this issue. Just want to put that out there. Okay. Yeah. And I'm also going to share some of my own experiences with the issue in the next slide, or the slide after that. So I too, my perceptions also are shaped by my experiences. So just want to do another reminder. Yesterday, I had said that, you know, some of the topics that we touched today are very sensitive. They might bring up some personal feelings, personal materials of ourselves. And if at any point we feel really uncomfortable and we feel like I just don't want to be here anymore, that's okay. Just drop me into the private message and feel free to leave. Yeah. Anybody else want to comment on this? Angela, if you could share your comment, which you written in chat.
For this, I considered this point is a myth or a fact both, because the suicidal person may be a most of the weakened side, because he has no self-care or a societal support. That's why he has come into that point that he has no survival point, that he has to commit suicide. So he's the most weakest person. I cannot say selfish or forward, because suicide is itself a very hard attempt. Forward, I cannot say this word, but yeah, the personality becomes very weakened, no strengthened.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you. Emma, go ahead.
For me, in my opinion, it's a myth, because we don't know how long that person is, you know, we don't know how long the person is taking the problem, or we don't know how long that person is grieving for the problem he's having. And of course, in due time, because of some reasons affecting, like nobody, he don't want to talk to anybody, like then the problem keep on bugging him. That's why uh no resolutions on his problem. Maybe he is doing all his best to cope up with the problem. Then there comes a time that he don't know, he really don't know what to do already. Then it comes, the suicidal attempt come to his mind.
I just wanted to say before we move on, that part of it is these words are considered negative in the first place, selfish, coward, weak. When you're weak, you look for support and you create society. When you're a coward, sometimes something is coming to kill you and you hide. So you survive even longer. When you're selfish and you're not able to give of yourself to others and you take care of yourself, then you improve in a way that you can give of yourself to others. So I think the pressure of committing suicide can also come from the person who is feeling these feelings, also thinking about these exact words and not being able to overcome that negativity, that, oh, I'm a coward, oh, I am selfish, oh, I'm weak. So that repetition in your mind can cause you to build the pressure instead of looking for support. So like to stop thinking of these words as a negative is also important, I think. That it's okay to be selfish, it's okay to be cowardly, it's okay to be weak. And this is why we have others around us. This is why others can take care of us when we need it. And if we can look at it that way, then maybe the expectation of that, these words becomes less. And then, the pressure gets relieved a little bit.
That's very,
Uh,
very sad.
Is it fine to add, Elise? Ate Shar mentioned that she had experienced it firsthand. I also mentioned that I have also experienced this firsthand, and I do agree with the statement that people who are suicidal that wants to die are selfish, coward, or weak. Um, when a person is on this like in a suicidal stage, it means that they're already drowned with their problems and they don't know, they don't see any help at all. Like they are not able to open up, but they want to open up, but um, the people that they're opening up are like they're not helping at all, sometimes like that. So most of the suicidal person will really feel helpless. um, Also adding the fact that they are already in a trauma, or drowned in the problems already, and they might be other factors as well with their environment and some things like that stuffs. That's why um, this statement that you're showing right now is, it doesn't usually what do you call this one, it doesn't usually comes on a suicidal person's mind that we are selfish, we're cowards, we're weak, because what we are thinking is that we are um, getting away from the problem. We're finding ways, but we really feel helpless. But I do agree with the statement. Yeah, I just want to answer that question with Ati Ann. And I do understand that the topic is heavy. That's why I'm turning off my camera, because I might burst out some. But I'm not bursting out right now. I'm just like stuttering because, yeah, I know. Yeah, I think that's my opinion about it.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And thank you for being brave and staying on in the call. You as well, and Terry as well.
I
Yeah.
want to add here, if may I? Yes, in my opinion, for suicide person, yes, we can say that sometimes they are weak, because on a suicide situation, they already in an unstable condition. They can't focusing, they can't think positively, they can't control the situations, they can't think for their family. They just focus on their issues, on their problems, and they think that they lost everything. They can't focusing on their future, that what he do, or from this suicide attempt, his family already survived for this, so he can't focusing on all the things. He just focus that he lost everything. He is selfish, yes, because he not consider his family. The person not consider his family situations after his suicide, or sometime we can say that he is the person is weak because he already lost everything, and just he attempt the suicide, so we can say.
Thank you. Just a second ago, I said, thank you for being brave and staying in the call. So it's interesting how, this terminology just kind of comes out from our mouths, and the impact it can have on the other person. So yeah, I just want to appreciate again, Shahir, what you said. It's so interesting and useful. So this was the final myth. The fact is, the majority of people who feel suicidal do not actually want to die, nor are they doing it by choice. They experience significant emotional pain and find it difficult to see a way out of their situation. They can no longer bear to live the life they have. So I edited this quote a little bit earlier. It said something really nice. It said, the majority of people who feel suicidal, they do not actually want to die. Nobody wants to die, but they also no longer want to live the life that they have. Yeah. Does that make sense? So it's not that they want to die, they just don't want to live this life anymore. They cannot bear to live this life anymore. They're in significant, severe amount of emotional, psychological, maybe physical pain, spiritual. So just kind of want to go back to the for a moment. Just want to refer to Annie's comment, and I think there's also Anjana's comment. Thank you for everyone's comments. They're really adding to this discussion. They're extremely rich. So to an extent, we can control where we are on this continuum, right? Stress management is in our control. How much social support we have, to an extent, we can reach out for social support. We can, try to make new friendships, or rely on family members who are supportive and who we can trust, who are good listeners, and so on. So part of social support is in our control, and part of it is not, because to an extent, the people we have around us, the family, the friends, it's not really in our control, right? We could have people around us who we just cannot trust, who we just cannot share with. But then, of course, there are other resources out there. You could call a professional, you could seek therapy, you could turn to an online forum. There are online support groups out there, there are helplines. Okay, so to an extent, social support can be in your control. Stress management is in your control. But when it comes to causes of stress, usually those are not in our control. Usage of alcohol and drugs, workaholism, we can argue that those are in our control. But the pandemic, abuse, sexual abuse, a car accident, a family member dying, having a physical disability, going through war, and having cancer. The list just goes on and on and on. These things are not in your control. These things are not in your control. And you know, if we go back to our very first training session, we talked about stress and we talked about resilience, right? So we're like rubber bands. Luckily, I had this rubber band just sitting here. The other day, I had that scale just sitting there, so it's very convenient. So this rubber band, you know, when it bounces back, this is its resilience, right? Its ability to bounce back. So, and I kind of said to all of you that the more healthy stress management we've practiced regularly, we make it a part of our lifestyles, you know, like exercise and spirituality and travel or taking a break and creativity and talking to supportive friends and all of those things. So those things, they build our resilience, doing yoga and meditation, having a pet. I think many of you talked about having a pet, and many of you talked about crochet and stitching and your art and your cooking. So those things, they keep us resilient, right? But what happens is that sometimes the intensity of the stress or how long it goes on for, it can overwhelm our resilience, yeah? So if you look, the more I pull this band-aid, not band-aid, rubber band, it starts to change its shape and size, right? And it might get to a point where it just snaps altogether. So that's the effect of stress. Over time, if it goes on for too long or if it's too intense, then, you know, our resilience gets changed. Yeah, so if you see the rubber band has just become a little bit bigger, but if I keep doing it, oh, there you go. See, it snapped. The stress was too much. Its resilience couldn't keep up, right? So to an extent, it is not in our control. Yeah, and we need to remember that. Stigma are the negative beliefs and perceptions that we have against people who have mental illness, against people who commit suicide and have other mental health issues. You know, we say things like, they should have tried harder, or they're selfish, they're coward, they're weak, or, you know, they weren't emotionally strong enough, or they weren't spiritual enough, they didn't believe in God, or they didn't pray enough. All of these things we say, this is all stigma, right? These are our negative perceptions about people who do acts like attempt suicide or who exhibit signs of mental illness. But like, it's really important to remember that it's not in there. A significant portion of it is not in their control. The stress could overwhelm their ability to cope with it, and they could have a genetic predisposition in the first place. We also talked about that, right? So someone's chances may be higher in the first place that they develop it. So I hope that made sense. One more thing on that. So just this morning, I Googled died by suicide, never mind. Anyway, what I was trying to show over here is that the language that we use around suicide is also changing, yeah? So now we don't use commit suicide. We say that this person died by suicide. And the reason for that is that, you know, commit is usually a negative word, and we see it, this person committed murder, or they committed this sinful act. And so it's a not very compassionate language. And the reason why we now say died by suicide is to show that there was a significant portion of it that was not in their control. The circumstances that they went through and the effect that it had on them, there's a significant portion of it that they could not control, and they died by the illness or they died by suicide. Yeah. Just one last thing, and then we're going to take a short break, and we're going to do a bit of a breathing exercise as well when we come back. Is that so in 2015, I had someone that I was working with. I was their therapist or their mental health practitioner. And her name was Nusrat, and she died by suicide. So I actually wrote an article about it. This is a local publication in Pakistani newspaper. And so if you can see my name here, you can see 2015. So this was an article that I had written. And in that, what I had written is, I had gone to her funeral and I kept hearing people say that, oh yes, you know, she took pills and she died, she had a mental illness. Yeah. And I kept thinking that, okay, sure, she had a mental illness, but that's not the reason why she died by suicide. That's not the reason why she attempted suicide. It was because she was going through a significant amount of abuse in her household. That's the reason, plain and simple. She couldn't take it anymore. She didn't want to live that life anymore. So if you read the article, it talks about how her brothers were inflicting abuse against her, and her father was actually her support figure, and he kept, you know, he was trying to make her feel better, be there for her. So I would say that, you know, every time the brothers inflicted violence against her, it was like an emotional injury, right? Of course, there was physical injury as well, but there was also an emotional injury. And, you know, the father would try to soothe the daughter, and she would be soothed for some time, but the injury just got to a point where, you know, she couldn't take the pain anymore, right? And so I, in my article, called it unrelenting emotional injury was the cause, in my opinion, right? So yeah, just wanted to share that perspective that mental illness is not the reason why she died. It's because it was about the pain that she was in, the emotional, the psychological pain that she was in. Yeah. Any comments, any questions over here? Yes, Laila.
Okay, so first of all, I'm really sorry to hear that. Like, I mean, I know you were her therapist, so it must have been really challenging for you as well. Anyways, my question is that you've mentioned that her brothers were inflicting pain on her physically, and that has left her a mental trauma, right? So it could be that this is the reason that why she died by suicide, and her father was her only means of support, mental support. So if the father was on her side, right? So my question is like, why didn't the father take action over the sons that, do not treat her like that, she's your sister? Maybe that could have helped. This is just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid question. I don't know the answer to that. Every story and every case is so complex. It has so many different factors involved. To be honest, I never asked that question. It could be that the father was financially dependent on the sons. It could be that in Pakistani society, the sons, being male figures, have a lot of power. I really am not sure. Maybe the father was not like, in terms of personality, didn't have it in him to stand up to the sons. I don't know. But it's a valid question. So Muqaddas says, I was just about to say that people who attempt suicide or self-harm wants to end the pain caused by the trauma they've been through. Their intention is to end the pain, not to end their lives. Yeah. So Anzala is saying that, sorry to hear that during counseling to her, did you have any click about this unrelenting incident? Yes, I did. She had made attempts in the past as well. Yeah, she had made past attempts as well. Yeah. It can be really difficult to work with people who are not able to change their circumstances. And I think many of the people that we'll be working with from Saudi Aramco will have this situation as well, where the job that they have, they need it, they need the money, right? But maybe being so far away from their family or being, there are a number of reasons that people have been calling us, the distress that they have is for a number of reasons. But many of them may not be able to change their external environment. They may have to stay in that job, they may have to stay in that place. And that can be really difficult. So in that case, the work is helping them to figure out what can you do now to just, give yourself more support to cope with the distress that you're in, to try and to bring more positive or more joy in your life, more happiness, more satisfaction in your life. Yeah. Any more questions or comments? Okay. So let's take a 15-minute break and then come back and continue. And I think when we come back, I'll do a bit of a breathing exercise just so that we can, I don't know, it might help us to just feel a bit better. Maybe it won't, I don't know. And anybody is, if you're feeling triggered, it might help with that. So it might help us to ground a little bit. Yeah. So let's try that when we get back. And if anybody wants to stay on and chat with me during the break, you're more than welcome to. We can make a little breakout room over here. Okay. So just, you can drop me a private message if you want, or you can just unmute and say, I'd like to talk right now. Okay. And let's pause the recording. So we're all right. So just go ahead and place your feet on the ground. Place your back against the chair. You can rest your hands in your lap. And if any other position is more comfortable for you, just go ahead and change it as you need to. If you're sitting on the ground, if you're sitting cross-legged on the ground, press your legs down and lengthen your spine, your back. We straighten our back just to make our breathing go more easily, to improve our breathing. You can close your eyes, or if it's more comfortable for you, you can look towards the ground. Start to notice the breath coming in and out of your nose. Maybe you can observe this breath traveling through the hairs in your nostrils. Or you can even put your hand in front of your nose and feel the breath on your hand. We're just exercising our focus, our attention, and bringing it towards our breath. Notice the breath traveling up and down your throat, your neck, inside of your neck. If you can feel it at all, and if you can't, don't worry about that. You could also just observe the rise and the fall of your chest. So you might notice with your breath that your chest is rising and falling. You can even place your hand on your chest and notice that your hand moves along with your chest. So we're just witnessing our breath. Just observing our body as it goes through this natural process. For some of us, it might be easiest to notice our breath by observing the belly, the expansion and the contraction of the belly. So our stomach. Again, you're welcome to place both hands on either side of your stomach. And just notice the hands moving apart, the belly filling up, and the hands coming closer together, the belly going inwards. Just keep your awareness at any of these points in order to observe your breath. You can also keep moving your attention between all of these bands, or you can observe your breath some other way that's easier for you. For a long time, the way that I used to observe my breath was I used to visualize it, I used to imagine it. I used to imagine my breath coming in and then going back out. So if it's possible, if you, while you observe your breath, also continue to feel the ground beneath you and the chair beneath you, or the, if you don't have a chair, like a bed or a sofa, or just the ground beneath you. You can even move your feet around on the ground to help you to notice how the ground feels against your feet. also run your hands along your legs and feel the clothes against your skin. You can also move your awareness to the sounds around you. Maybe the sounds of cars on the street, or the sound of your laptop buzzing, or the sound of this guided meditation. Birds chirping, or anything else, your children. Very quickly, notice if there are any smells around you. Can you smell anything right now? Can you taste anything right now? And then let's take 3 deep breaths together and make our way back into the session. So inhale through your nose, taking a deep, long breath in. And then exhale from your mouth, make a sound. Once again, inhale, take a deep, long breath in through your nose. And exhale from your mouth. And one more. This time with your exhale, make a really big sigh sound. And then gently blink your eyes open and look up. How is everyone doing?
Much better.
Feels much better.
Calm and relax.
Nicole, I think you were saying something, but you were on mute.
Yeah, I'm doing fine right now. I'm more relaxed in a sense.
And if you're still not feeling relaxed, that's also okay and totally normal. I am going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, this is feeling calm and sleepy. Okay, so we had a nice long discussion. We shared our personal experiences. Now let's talk a little bit more about suicide from a technical perspective. Yeah. So there are 3 types of suicidal behavior. Number 1 is just suicide. We refer to it as just suicide, is when a person takes his or her or their own life. A suicide attempt is an effort by someone to take his or her or their own life, but it is not completed. Yeah. And then there's a third kind as well. So we refer to it as passive or indirect suicide. So is when someone tries to cause their own death, or they have desire to no longer live. And the way that they kind of express that desire, or the way that they try to cause, so they indirectly trying to cause their own death, by refusing food, by not eating, and in some cases, refusing medicine. Yeah? So if someone is in a health condition and there are some required medications that they need to be on in order to live, and they choose to not take those medicines, or they insist on not taking those medicines. Yeah? So just keep in mind that this behavior on its own, so if someone is not eating or if someone is refusing their medicine, we can't immediately say, okay, this person is trying to attempt suicide indirectly. We can't say that. We have to look at the other behaviors as well together. We have to see if there are some other warning signs present as well. Okay. So no behavior on its own can immediately be seen as suicide or a suicide attempt. But is it clear? Are the three different types of suicide, are they clear? So the first one is if it's completed, if the suicide is completed, the person passes away. A suicide attempt is when it is not completed, the person is still alive. They may be in hospital, they may be, their health might be damaged, but they have not died. That's a suicide attempt. And then the third is indirect. Yeah. Thank you, Laila. Any questions here?
Alicia, can you give one example for second type?
Yes, sure. So the second one is actually the most common. It's the most common, right? So if someone takes pills and they end up in the hospital, or if someone tries to injure themselves physically, maybe they try to hang themselves or jump off of a building and they still didn't die. So then we say it's a suicide attempt. Okay. Attempt is like a try. They tried. Yeah.
Reason, for third one, we can say if the person is mentally disturbed, or he can't sleep well, or he can't eat anything. He just avoid everything. He can't sleep. He can't eat anything, or even he can't take any medicine. So we can say the third case is related to this.
No, I would say no. So I think what you're describing is a result of stress, right? So if somebody is under stress, or even if they are in distress, like we said, it could be a common sign that they are, not being able to eat, or they're not being able to sleep. They're not being able to, right? But what we're talking about in the third type of suicide is when someone, maybe they're in a lot of distress. Maybe they already have a mental illness, or maybe they've been through a big trauma or big stressor. And due to the pain of that, they basically, they no longer want to live, right? So they don't take a step towards dying. They don't attempt suicide by injuring themselves in any means or taking pills. Instead, they just start to resist food. Yeah. So in a way, resisting food or saying no to food is also a step that they're taking. Yeah. The only difference is that they're not actively going out there to injure themselves. But what they need to stay alive, they're resisting that, they're refusing that, they're saying no to that. Right? So I was just going to say something. Yeah, so the difference between what you said and the example that I'm trying to give is that, you know, if someone can't eat or they can't sleep because they're under stress, versus if someone starts to say no to food. Yeah. If someone has been through a very intense illness and they're maybe on life support, right? They may say that I don't want to be on life support. I don't want to be on oxygen, or I don't want to, you know, take these things that keep me alive. I want to rather die. Yeah. And so people could technically term that as passive or indirect suicide. And there are many debates on this around the world. So people in different parts of the world, different religions, different cultures, they, you know, they say they have things to say about whether this is their choice or not their choice, right? Is this right or is this wrong? So people differ on this, but essentially the idea is that there is intent to die. Yeah. Anybody else want to comment? I think this is also very complicated. Yeah, go ahead, Ishfaq.
I think the third one, passive or indirect suicide, this incident is more severe than other twos, and patient is highly committed to do suicide, and therefore the person refusing to take medicine or any kind of food. So I think this person need more treatment under the psychologist, and more serious treatment he or she will need to take. Yeah.
So in the other cases, I agree with you, this is serious, but the others are also equally serious, because in the others, the person has successfully or they've completed the suicide, right? They've either taken pills, or they've hung themselves, or they jumped off the building, or they've shot themselves or done something else to kill themselves. So a person who does that is in a lot of psychological, emotional pain from before, and that's what leads them to that point. Yeah. So they also need help. And similarly, a person who ends up in the hospital because they haven't, they weren't able to complete the suicide, but they did take an overdose of pills, or they did, try to cut themselves to a point where they wanted to die, but they weren't able to. So those things are also equally serious, right? Angela is saying, my question is, the causes of stressor suicide for all three types would be same. Yes, for all three, they are the same. They are the same. So number 1 and number 3, the person is just attempting the suicide in different ways. The pathway to suicide is just different, right? And for number 1 and number 2, the outcome is just different. Yeah. Let me see if I can give another example. So say that you want to go to Australia and you fly via New York City, and you go from one part of the world, or you fly the opposite side of the world, right? You're trying to get to the same place, but you're just taking a different path. So direct suicide or indirect suicide, whether you take a step towards physically harming yourself, or you just refuse food instead.
Sorry, I just have a call. So can I pick?
Yes, go for it. Yeah, so the pathway is just different. And so if your flight doesn't actually reach, right, if you don't actually get there, if you have to, no, you aren't able to reach Australia, maybe you ran out of fuel or there were some poor weather conditions, so you had to stop your flight somewhere else. So that means that you weren't actually able to reach, but you still had the intention to go there. Yeah, so that would be suicide attempt. So I hope that's clear. And as we move along, and we'll be working together in supervision, we can always clarify the differences. So then we have impulsive versus planned suicides. Yeah. Can anybody take a guess? What do I mean by impulsive versus planned? So ignore this diagram for now, ignore the text on the slide. Just what do we think impulsive suicide is? What do we think the planned suicide is?
Can I?
Yes, please.
Maybe the impulsive one is unintentional and plan is intentional.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm adding one point here is that as per my perception, impulsive suicide means the one thing trigger you the most at a certain time or significant manner, so you have to attempt on that situation on a time without any delay. But the planned suicide is you have decided the individual who have decided that at certain stage at this level of stress I have to take my life. I have to take it on. And it's all over. And that's the difference.
Yeah, so impulsive is if you don't put a lot of planning into it, if maybe something happens or maybe you've been feeling not so good or you've been feeling really bad for a long time, but you all of a sudden decide, I'm going to attempt suicide, I'm going to do it, and you do it. Versus if you put a lot of planning into it. So I can give you an example of a planned suicide. And if anybody knows of an impulsive suicide, I know of impulsive suicide attempts, but I would love to hear from you guys first. So a planned suicide, I'll give you an example. So there is a boy that I knew, it's a boy from a family that I know. And what he did was he planned his suicide. Okay, so he was studying. He's a Pakistani boy. He was studying in Boston, and he was about to graduate. And his parents were flying to America to attend his graduation, and he knew they were flying over, and he chose that time to do his suicide. So what he did was he made a video where he gave a message to his parents. And then he went to a subway station and over there in the middle of the night, and he hung himself over there, right? So he chose a time of day where there would not be any people around to see it, to stop him. So he planned the time of day. He also wrote, like he made a video for his family. He chose the time that he was going to do it. Yeah, so there was a lot of planning that went into it. So that's a planned suicide. Anybody have an example for an impulsive suicide? Yes, Mukaddas.
I had a client. She was admitted in the treatment care facility. So she suddenly pushed the electric board and take out the electric wires to harm herself, to kill herself. So this is an example of an unplanned or impulsive suicide. Whereas planned suicide, the person bought the poison from the shop, keep it at home, and wait for the family members to go out of the home, and then he committed suicide. This is the planned suicide example that I have experienced in my practices.
Thank you. Muqaddis, how do you know that the person who harmed themselves by touching the electric wires, how do you know it was impulsive?
Because she was so triggered due to by discussing something very traumatic about her life. So she just stood up and went towards the electric board and pushed it so hard that it get broken. And then she put out the electric wires out of it and was constantly saying that I just want to kill myself. I just want to die right now. So obviously we rescue her, we call the team, and she was not able to do it. But this was the example that I just got in my mind about the impulsive suicide.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else have any examples that they want to share or questions they want to ask? Yes, Laila.
Can someone actually commit impulsive suicide? Because like it's just a sudden thing, right? So if they're depressed, suddenly they become depressed, and then can they actually do that immediately? Is that even possible?
I think I think it definitely is. Yeah, Muqaddis, please go ahead.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Yes, it does happen. I have seen very mostly young people. They have disputes with their parents and they just go and attempt the suicide, the impulsive suicide. They cannot bear the stress of the situation or stress of the dispute with their parents. So they did it. Even I have seen a 14 years old boy. He was asking his mother to give him 500 rupees. She refused for it. He goes out. He drinks the poison just because his mother did not fulfill his thing, his demand.
Yeah, I was going to share something similar. So, you know, in the same community where, you know, I shared the article with you all of the client of mine who died by suicide. So in that same community, in that same area, there were many cases that we would hear that, you know, a couple would have a fight, or two lovers would have a fight, and then one of them would bring poison. This was a common occurrence. And unfortunately, I think I can go into the causes, but I think when you see it on dramas and you see it on TV, then it can really become a part of your culture. So, I mean, what is culture, right? If you see acts that are done, certain behaviors that are done, certain perceptions that people have, if you see those again and again and again, then it's more easily accessible for you to have those same perceptions. But yeah, that's a separate conversation. So just to also answer your question, Laila, what this slide is trying to show, so this graph is something that I got from a study that was done. So if you can see that basically it says on the x-axis, it says how long people had been planning their suicide for. and it shows on the y-axis how successful they were in the suicide, or whether they were able to complete the suicide or not, right? So so there were people who had been planning their suicide for for a year, and they had, to take like 10 attempts. Yeah. People who had been planning for a month had to take between 10 and 20 attempts. People who had been, planning for under 10 minutes, so it was more impulsive of a suicide, they have to attempt 40 to 50 times before they are able to succeed. Yeah. So it's actually a percentage. Sorry, so 10% of basically what it's trying to say is that the more planning that goes into it, the more successful it is, because suicide is not easy to commit. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the same thing because it's written attempters. So it's basically the percentage of people, the number of people, those who were successful in 10 minutes or in a week or 12 months.
Yeah. But now I'm reading the graph is saying that more people were successful for the less time they attempted it, which is not how I initially read it. Am I misreading something?
Yeah, actually, you're seeing it in a way that you're thinking the attempters, you're seeing the y-axis as how many times they've attempted suicide, but that's actually the number of people, those who were successful committing suicide. That's the y-axis, percentage of people, and the x-axis is basically the timing that they were planning for. So the first one, 10 minutes, they were planning 50% of the people were successful in committing suicide, those who have planned for only 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, just to add or just to interrupt. So that means that as I'm looking at the graph, does it mean that I know that it's not easy to commit suicide, but does it mean that most suicidal situation were for impulsive? Should I assume that? Because if it's just 10 minutes, they're planning it 10 minutes, maybe they're just being carried away with their emotions in just 10 minutes and they did it. Does it seems like the graphs showing that a lot of people committing impulsive suicide?
So what this study and some of the other studies that we looked at, what they are saying is that if you plan it, you're more likely to succeed. But a very high percentage of people who attempt suicide do it impulsively. Yeah. And there are a number of studies out there that have done this. They have varying results, varying percentages of how many people do impulsive versus planned. But this is what they usually say. So I'm going to go back to the study and look at the graph again in the wider context, and then I'll share more details with you guys. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for helping me with that. Okay, so why do people attempt or die by suicide? Yeah. So if you've never thought about taking your own life, you may find it difficult to understand why someone would consider dying this way. Yeah. I'm sure many of you cannot, wrap your head around it. It might be confusing. It might feel really strange. And similar to self-harm, I think someone already mentioned that in this training already, that people who harm themselves physically, even if they're not trying to attempt suicide, but they're just trying to inflict physical harm on themselves, why do they do it, right? And if we go back to our stress management workshop, we said that, sometimes self-harm can be an unhealthy way of coping with stress. Yeah. If you're already in a very high amount of stress, that's when you turn to it. Causing physical pain to yourself can be a form of relief from emotional pain in that moment. Some people do it in other ways. Some people might cut their skin. Other people might like drive their car very fast. Some people might place themselves in other high risk situations where they might be sexually exploited, or they might take a high amount of drugs or alcohol. All of these are forms of self-harm, and people do it to escape or to find relief from the existing emotional or psychological pain that they are in. Yeah. So you can imagine that that pain is already so much, so high for them. Yeah. And there are other more complicated psychological reasons as well that factor into this. I'm wondering if I should get into those right now or leave them for right now. I think I'll leave them for right now. Okay. So if you've never thought about taking your own life, you may find it difficult to understand why someone would consider dying this way. There's no single cause of suicide. Yeah, there are many different factors, biological and psychological, that are coming together. There will usually be one or more triggers or stressors. And interestingly, so you know how we talked about genetics can predispose you to mental illness, right? Genetics can predispose you to addiction. Similarly, if you already have it in your family, you could also learn certain behaviors of it. You can be more at risk of developing it yourself. So this is not to say that everyone that attempts suicide has a mental illness, or nor are we saying that everyone who has mental illness attempts suicide, but it can be one reason, right? It can be one increased risk factor, right? So if you have a mental illness, you are more at risk of attempting suicide. So that can be one of the biological reasons why you may do it. And then there are many other reasons as well. There will usually be one or more triggers or stressors, right? So one major intense cause of stress that has come about, or prolonged stress, right? You might be in a stress for a long period of time. And access to lethal means also plays a part. So lethal means is, do you have access to poison? Do you have access to a gun? Have you watched a video of someone causing physical harm to themselves, and so you know exactly how to do it? These things really play a part, right? Because if someone has the intention or the will or the desire to no longer live, but they don't have the means to carry it out, then they won't be successful. They won't be able to complete it. Yeah. So let's look at, so some people are, like I said, you know, if you have a mental illness, you're already more at risk of suicide. So there are some people who are already more at risk. Let's find out who these people are. Yeah. So firstly, if you have a major change in your life, if you have a major change in your life circumstances that has happened, like, you know, we talked about, so a family member, friend passes away, you get divorced and you lose your family members, or there is some other kind of extreme family stress, or you're suddenly placed into financial difficulties. Maybe you lose your job, or there is some other kind of economic uncertainty, or you lose your business. Often when you lose your business or you lose your job, it also affects your self-esteem. And you also, often it changes your status. So maybe, you know, you were a wealthy, successful businessman, and then you lose your business. So you basically lose that entire identity, and that can really be a big loss for a person. Someone loses their job, and so they might start to think that, you know, why me? Why did this happen to me? There's something wrong with me. That's why this happened to me. So it can really take a hit on your self-esteem. Or you might think, I can't provide for my family, and, you know, sometimes there's especially around men, there's a lot of pressure to be the provider. And so then you feel like, oh, you start to feel like a failure. Obviously, it's different for everyone, but I'm just saying that these can be some of the things that happen. And if a family member, something happens to a family member, if they contract a major illness, or if they pass away, or if they're kidnapped, or some other kind of extreme trauma that you go through, these things can put you more at risk. Okay. Can someone volunteer to please read this out?
Example of a person. Can I read it? Sorry.
Go ahead, Cheryl. You want to read?
All right. Yeah. Example of a person with an increased risk of committing suicide. Alina, 14-year-old, and her brother, Bilal, 16-year-old, are two siblings. They look out for one another and are each other's confidants. Their parents fight a lot, and it was routine for them to witness such fights. One day, the parents fight for the boys. Alina went to live with her mother, while Bilal went to live with his father. They started going to different schools. While Alina befriended new people, Bilal did not speak to anyone. They would often text or call each other, but rarely meet. As they grew older, Alina noticed that Bilal became rude and uninterested in Alina's life. He would often say that Alina and his mother had left him alone. When Alina would try asking him about his time at university, he would respond by saying, I don't want to go. There is no hope for the future. No university would choose me. It would be better to do nothing, be nothing, and put an end to it. After a few months, Bilal stopped speaking to Alina altogether.
Thank you, Sherry. And thank you, Leila, as well, for volunteering. I thought I would give Sherry a chance. Okay, so we just looked at some causes or some factors that put people more at risk of suicide. So can someone over here tell me what can they see in this little example? What are the factors, or what are the signs, that what are the things that are putting Bilal more at risk? Go ahead, Sherry.
Well, I believe that Bilal is much more at risk of committing suicide. He's like walking away from everything. He's rejecting himself on his own. So even if the sister is speaking with him, um, he just wanted to stay out of everything. So that's one of the signs that person is about to commit suicide because he feels alone. So even if the situation is very evident that the parents were actually divorced in a mutual understanding that they don't want to live together and they were separated and they had two different kids born at the same time. So sometimes the most affected ones when it comes to divorce are kids or children. So that's what's actually happening right now with Bilal. So I think he is really on the verge of committing suicide if it's not going to be addressed or if it's not going to be solved.
Oh. Thank you, Sherry. Angela?
just try to write my comments. I want to say that Bilal, at the age of 16, a very young age, adolescent age, he has faced domestic violence in terms of their parents' fight a lot in front of them. This cause may risk suicide, and also he being separated with his father and not, but rarely met with his sibling and his mother. So this made him become more rude and uh, very interruption in his life and in his daily routine. After that, he's not coping with the situation and not taking interest in his future as well.
Okay. Thank you, Ansela. Anybody else? I would love to hear from some of the people who I haven't heard from like in a while or all sessions. So David, I haven't heard from you at all today. Would love to hear from you. And Shahrukh, haven't heard from you in a bit. Manal, we haven't heard from you today. Yes, Fariha.
In the whole story, as we just see the example of Bilal, that Bilal totally disturbed due to their family issues and due to their parents' issues, and due to these issues, that impacts on his mental condition. But if we can see that he's totally he's not hopeful for his future. He just stop thinking about his future, about his career, or his terms with his family, with his mother, with his sister. He just try to be attached from their family, or he don't want to connect it with their family. I think he also want to stay alone from his mother or from his sister. His belief from the family or from the family attachment. I think he have no attachment, or he just focusing on himself. Not even he just focus on his career, his future. He just stopping himself.
So thank you for all of your comments. I think you guys have become really good at spotting signs of stress or signs of distress. So that's really good. I think you guys spotted all of the signs. And if we look at the factors that put you at risk of, this should say dying by suicide, not committing, or just increased risk of suicide. So, you know, it's usually a major change in life circumstances or a loss, etc., or an ongoing stress. So here we have, firstly, yes, you guys rightly mentioned that, you know, he went through trauma. You know, his parents were fighting in front of him. So witnessing that, those fights can be traumatic for a child, especially. So that's number one. Then the parents filed for divorce and he was separated from two of his immediate family members that he was used to living with, who he's very close to. So that change, that major change in his life has now put him at risk of suicide. Yeah. Now, as we go forward, we're going to see warning signs. We're going to learn about warning signs. So now these are two separate things, right? So there will be people who will be at risk of suicide, but they may not go on. So risk means that their chances are increased, yeah, that they will attempt or die by suicide. Or have suicidal ideation, which is have thoughts about suicide or have the desire to die, right? So there are some people whose risk is higher or who are at risk or whose chances are higher. And usually they've been through trauma, they've been through a major life change, right? But whether they actually do it or not, again, that varies from person to person, situation to situation. And there are ways to tell if this person is actually thinking about it already, if this person is actually desiring to die, if this person is actually planning or he's taking steps or he's having thoughts about suicide. Yeah. So we can actually see warning signs of that. So firstly, they might talk about it. Yeah. They might actually tell you that they want to die. They may tell you that they feel that they're experiencing great guilt or great shame. Maybe they've committed an act and their family or their society has shunned them, and told them to go away. So if you know, and this is where I'm maybe going to confuse you a little bit, but we have to differentiate between factors that put somebody at risk and warning signs, right? So if we know from before, okay. So for instance, a client of mine shared with me that, he studies in a university and he has a friend who said or did something to a girl. And the girl basically called him out as part of the Me Too movement. And all of that guy's friends, one day they went into the basketball court and they all surrounded him and they started calling him names. Okay. And of course, after that, he felt a very significant amount of pain. He felt a lot of guilt. He felt a lot of shame. And he was now cut off from his friends. All of his friends were against him. So when my client shared this with me, I immediately knew, okay, I know about this event. So I know that this person is at risk of suicide. Yeah. If I was working directly with this person, and based on what they shared with me, what they told me directly about what they were feeling, what they were thinking about their behavior, if I was directly working with him, I could then start to also see warning signs. Right? So if that boy were to say that, oh, I'm such a big burden on my friends, or I shouldn't, be alive anymore, I think I should deserve to die, or things like that. So those are warning signs. Or I'm so ashamed of my behavior, so that's a warning sign. So not just a everyday or a medium level of guilt or shame. We often feel guilt or shame about things, but a really large amount of guilt or shame to a point where someone's like, I just can't live with this anymore. It's so big, it's so bad, I can't believe this. Can't believe I did this, right? And over time, we will learn to differentiate between these big ones and smaller ones. So number one, or the first kind of warning sign is if someone is talking about why they don't deserve to live or should not be alive or want to die. Yeah. The next one is feeling. So if someone feels a significant amount, so a large amount of hopelessness, so no kind of hope for the future, nothing to look forward to, no reason to live, or if they feel completely empty, devoid of feelings, if they feel trapped in their existing life and they feel there's absolutely no way out of it. I have so much debt and I am unable to fulfill that debt. There's no way out of this. I'm never going to be able to pay it back. The people are after me to pay my debt back. My family thinks I'm such a disgrace or a shame in front of my family. I'm completely worthless. I don't deserve to be alive. So if someone is saying things like that, or they're feeling things like that, then that's a sign that they are thinking about suicide. or they may have desired, or they may develop a desire for suicide. Okay. If someone is extremely sad, anxious, agitated, or full of rage, so this is basically a sign of a high amount of distress, right? So if someone is really, really, really angry or extremely sad or extremely agitated, like very reactive, this can be a warning sign of suicide, but we also want to look at what are the other factors around it. Yeah? What else is going on? Are there other signs that are accompanying it? Okay, because sometimes it can also be a sign of something else. Yeah. Unbearable emotional or physical pain. So if you know that this person is going through an experience where they just cannot bear it, right? Then usually the next step is that they start to think about suicide. If they can't bear something, if it's unbearable, then they need a way out. And if they have no way out, then they could be considering suicide, or they may start to consider suicide. Then we have changing behavior, such as making a plan or researching ways to die. If you find out that, if you see someone's Google search history and you see that they've been looking up ways of attempting suicide, then that's a warning sign right there. Yeah. So another one is, or if you notice that someone is buying weapons, or they've arranged or stolen someone's weapon, or if they've bought poison, then that can be a warning sign. Yeah. But like I said earlier, it's also important to look at the other signs. Is this person under a high amount of distress? How are things going in their life? Have they recently been through a major change or a major trauma? Right? Because on its own, it could also not be suicide. Right? If someone just buys poison one day, or rat poison one day, and there are no other signs, they're otherwise a very normal, healthy, functioning person, and there hasn't been any major trauma in their life that has recently happened, then maybe they're just, trying to deal with the pests in their house. Maybe they're trying to kill a rat. Next one, withdrawing from friends, saying goodbye, giving away important items, or making a will. So withdrawing from friends, again, it could also just be a sign of distress, right? If someone is in a lot of pain, if they've been really let down by their friends, they could be going through distress. They still need help. They still need help. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that they're at immediate risk of suicide. So you need to look at the other signs around them. Are they withdrawing from friends? And are they also anxious, agitated, reactive, not sleeping, not eating, talking about what a great burden they are? So, you have to see all the signs. Usually, if someone starts to say goodbye to their friends, or if they start to give away important items, or if they make a will, it's very much could be a sign that they are planning to die. Yeah. Again, it's important to look at the other signs as well. Yeah. So then we have taking dangerous risks, such as driving extremely fast. This could be a sign of distress as well. Either way, the person needs help, and it's important to also look at the other signs. So eating or sleeping more or less, using alcohol and drugs more often. So these are also signs of distress. The person needs help, and look at the other signs as well. And then displaying extreme mood swings. So if a person is behaving as if they are in high amounts of distress, if their behavior is erratic, if their behavior is unlike how they usually are. So, and this could also be because they are suffering from a mental illness. So sometimes when people are suffering from a mental illness, they may, I'm thinking of how to say this, they may be at risk of causing harm to themselves or people around them because of a variety of factors. One, they are no longer in control of their emotions and they're experiencing extreme emotions, or some, mental illness also affects the way that you think. So there could be also paranoia. There could be some extreme distrust of other people that is taking place. There could be extreme anger. So like we said earlier, right, that someone who is mentally ill does not always attempt suicide. And people who attempt suicide are not always mentally ill, right? But there can be. So if someone is going through a mental illness and they are displaying extreme mood swings, if they are extremely agitated, and there are other kinds of behaviors that have been mentioned over here, so they could be at risk of harming themselves. They could be at risk of harming others as well. Yeah. So as we go on, we're going to practice watching out for these signs more and more and more. I have a couple of comments in the chat box. So Ansela, thank you for that question. You said giving away important items, not giving importance to their belongings. So basically, I don't know if any of you have experienced this. So my grandfather, my dada, the day that he passed away, so he was unwell, of course. And I mean, we all knew, and he also knew that he might pass away. But the day that he passed away, he called me and he said that, there's this lighter in my cupboard and give this to your papa. So give this to your uncle. And we all found it really strange. And then when he passed away later that day, we were like, did he know that he was going to die today? Is that why he said, give this thing away to that person? So that's what I mean. So also people who are planning suicide will take certain similar steps that other people do who are sick and dying. Yeah, like writing a will, making sure that what your belongings are, they go to the people that you leave behind. Does that make sense? Any other questions, comments? Okay, so the next thing, so
Alicia, I want to share something.
Yeah, please. Go ahead, Muqaddas. I can't hear you. Can other people hear her? No, right? Muqaddas, I think you're having some issue with your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can't hear you still. Maybe you can share it over chat. Okay. Sorry, Muqaddas, we're not able to hear you. All right, so we've talked about warning signs, right? I just want to take the warning signs that we've already talked about and separate them into two categories, okay? So there's immediate, which I like to call also planning stage, okay? So if someone is showing these warning signs, then that person is an immediate or let's say urgent risk of attempting or dying by suicide. Yeah. So if, for instance, if they're threatening to hurt or kill themselves, they're seeking access to pills or guns or other means to hurt or kill themselves. Or if they're talking or writing about death, dying, or suicide excessively. And even if it's not excessive, even if they're just talking or writing about death or dying or suicide. So these things are warning signs, and they can suggest that the person is already thinking about it, and the person might already be planning it, or they're having thoughts about suicide, or they already have the desire to attempt suicide. Yeah. So when it's immediate, it's much more severe, it's much more urgent. However, let me minimize this. My screen is being cut off. Yeah. However, the less immediate, they also need to be taken seriously. Yeah. So some of the other warning signs that we talked about are hopelessness, rage or uncontrollable anger, feeling trapped, increased drug use, anxiety, agitation, unable to sleep or excessive sleeping, dramatic changes in mood, engaging in reckless or risky activities, and someone who feels they have no sense of purpose, right? So we will be sharing these warning signs with you guys, and we will be working together on recognizing them. So it's possible that someone who is displaying these warning signs, they may be considering suicide, or they may be leading to the path that where they're going to attempt it or start to plan it, or they might already be thinking about it. Yeah, they may already be thinking about it. If you look at the immediate warning sign, we know that this person is, at risk. We know that this person might be thinking about it, so we need to do something about it, right? So another way of looking at it, you could say there's immediate warning signs and there's less immediate warning signs, or you could see it as this person is in the planning stages and this person is at risk. Or another way of thinking about it, that this person is definitely thinking about it and this person might be thinking about it. In both cases, we need to do something about it. Okay. We have a few things coming in from the chat box. What are people saying? One of the warning signs that I've experienced is that people, bye Annie, take care. One of the warning signs that I've experienced is that people share different quotes and posts that show hopelessness and helplessness on their social media accounts. Yes, definitely. I've also seen this for sure. Anjala, you have a question. Maybe you can ask it towards the end. Can someone read this out, please? Anybody?
I will read it out now. Can
Sure.
everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, ma'am. Basically, my net connection is really bad today.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Example of some. Thank you for calling in. How can I help? Caller. Hi, I'm calling in because I'm very worried about a friend and I do not know how to help him. You see, what is making you worried about your friend? He says things that I do not know how to respond to. Things like there is no hope for him and he is a disappointment to everyone. His only remedy is taking drugs and not feeling thinking a thing. When did he say these words for you? He has been talking like this since the past few weeks. His eyes were red and he was barely eating since a week. I had asked him if something happened. He said he could not sleep and then said these words. Has he mentioned anything about dying or taking his own life? Well, no, that I think about it. He often says that he might be better off dead. I also came across a note that he wrote about dying and told me to give to his parents. He was apologizing to them in the note. I understand that you are concerned for your friend and you want to help him. We will try and get him immediate help. Can you please share his details with us?
Okay, thank you. So, what are the warning signs that we are seeing?
Can
Yeah.
so taking drugs and like the caller already said that there is no hope for him and he is so disappointed, and he only preferred as a remedy is taking drug. So this is a warning sign, and he did not eat, and it means barely eating a week, and he does not sleep well over the few past weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ashwat. Anybody else?
May I?
Yeah.
Some signs like he just going to take taking drugs, or think very negatively. He even write a note for his family that he give to his friend. So these are the sign, and his conditions like his red eyes, or he taking drugs, or he don't want to. Even his written note is showing that he want to die by suicide, or he want to attempt a suicide. So these are the sign. I think these are the.
Yeah. So, okay, so you guys are right in a way. Just keep in mind that there are some immediate signs, immediate warning signs, or warning signs this person is at immediate risk, right? That he must be in the planning stages already, or he's very seriously thinking about it. And then there are some signs where, okay, this person is at risk. This person could already be thinking about it or could lead to thinking about suicide. And those signs can often be the same signs for mental illness. They can be the same signs of distress, right? So here, so in the previous, if we go back to the example of Bilal, so Bilal was showing signs that he was at risk of suicide. He was, so for instance, we know that, you know, his parents were divorced. We know that he has been through some kind of trauma. We know that he has lost two of his family members. So those are the things that we know that put him at risk. We know that people who go through these things could be at risk of mental illness, and they can be at risk of suicide, right? Now, what are the signs that are showing up inside of Bilal? What are we seeing from Bilal's behavior, right? What, not from what we know about his life, but what he is exhibiting. What is his behavior? What is his thoughts? What are his feelings? So he is becoming rude, uninterested. He wants to be left alone. Yeah. Then he's saying, okay, so those are, so those are not immediate warning signs, but those are warning signs, right? But they're also warning signs of stress. And they can also be, I don't think those are warning signs of mental illness. Okay. When he says, I don't want to go to the university, there's no hope for the future. No university is going to choose me. It would be better to do nothing, be nothing, and put an end to it all. That's an immediate warning sign. That shows that he is possibly thinking about suicide, right? He's saying there's no hope for my future. I have nothing to live for. I'm better off dead. Essentially, that's what he's saying. Yeah. So similarly, in this example, we have somebody calling to talk about their friend, right? This is an example. Some of you have already had cases like this. I believe it was either the Bangla team or the Pakistan team where you got a caller who was concerned about his friend. So you guys will continue to get cases like that as well. So we also need to look out for warning signs in those cases. Yeah. So now in this situation, if we can try and, you know, differentiate what is a warning sign that we're seeing where the person is maybe in the immediate stage where they're really like, where they're possibly already planning and thinking about suicide. And the other, which is that they're at risk, which they could lead to thinking about it. And these can also be confused with or interchangeably used with signs of stress or mental illness. So I've said a lot of things. Let's hear from you guys now. And we'll make like a table to make this even clearer for us, okay? Anyone want to take a guess? So what are the signs that he's at immediate risk? That he's maybe in the planning stages. He's very seriously thinking about it. Anyone?
Can I?
Yes, please.
Maybe one reason is like he write an apologizing note for his parents.
Yeah. And Emma, if you can also tell us, why do we think that's an immediate sign?
Because I think he felt hopeless, helpless. That's why he's already doing that. So anything happens to him, or her. He already apologized to his parents. Why maybe he already told them the reason why he do that thing.
Okay. And I think the fact that he's writing a note, that shows that he's already planning to die, right? He wrote a note about dying. Yes, Laila.
Okay, so the immediate signs are that he's writing a note about dying, and he's also often saying that it might be better for him to be dead, and he's also apologizing to his parents. Or so basically, these are the immediate signs, and a person who's not already planned to or is not already thinking about committing suicide, they will not come to this extent. So these are the signs that show that he's already planning to take his own life. And the less immediate are that he has stopped eating, and he cannot sleep well, and he's saying that there's no hope for him, and this he's a disappointment to everyone. So also he has increased the drugs and all that. So these are the less immediate signs.
Thank you. Angela, do you want to say something?
Yes, I just say one thing. As already most of the points have been discussed by others, that he's been his only remedy is to take in drugs and not thinking anything else. So the drug is itself the addiction. He addicted to drugs, and it's the addiction. It's itself a mental illness. So this is the one warning, immediate risk, warning signs of suicide.
So the fact that he's taking drugs, and we know that he's abusing them, right? Because he's not just taking them sometimes, like how it's appropriate to take alcohol in some cultures, or sometimes people use drugs experimentally, recreationally. He's abusing drugs. It says his only remedy is taking drugs to the point where he's not feeling or thinking a thing, right? So he is abusing drugs. I would say that that is a warning sign, but it's a warning sign of mental illness, dysfunction, I would say. It can also be a warning sign of stress. And I would say it's a less immediate warning sign, right? It does not necessarily show that he's in the planning stages of suicide. Okay.
And his disappointment also a sign of less immediate risk. So disappoint for everything, disappoint from everyone, or his disappointments also showing that he is in a stress. He's not in a condition of suicide, but it's a less immediate risk, disappointment, not hope for anything.
I would say that's an immediate sign.
Disappointment.
Yeah, he's saying that I'm a disappointment to everyone. So, I like, no, I'm not adding any value to anybody. I'm not worth much for people. So I don't really have anything to look forward to. I'm not really that.
Right, no hope for anything. There is no hope for it.
Yes. So if you see this, if someone talks about being a great guilt or shame to people, or a disappointment to people, I'm a disappointment. People don't need me. I'm not worthy. I don't add value. Why should I be alive? Why should I exist? Right? Or if they talk about being a burden to others, if they talk about wanting to die. So that's
disappointment or
yeah, I would say that that's an immediate sign. It doesn't say it here, but yeah. Okay. So then we come to our protocol. So if we see warning signs in people, right, then it's important that we alert Sarmad or Ashfaq right away. They will alert me, they will alert the Aramco people, then they will tell you or they will guide you what the next steps are. So usually this is the 5 steps. If we think someone is at risk of killing themselves, usually we ask, are you thinking about killing yourself? Then we do whatever we can to keep them safe. So if we alert Aramco, then Aramco is going to physically go to wherever this person is and monitor them, make sure that they don't have access to a gun or any other thing that they can kill themselves with. Then hopefully they will be there for them, emotionally support them, talk to them. And it's important for you all also to stay connected, right? So it's important for you to follow up and stay in touch with them. Yeah. So we will guide you to do that. We will, because the next steps would vary from situation to situation. So the first step is to alert Sarmad or Ashfaq. Yeah. And of course, if you can't get in touch with them for any reason, that should not be the case. I'm sure you will always be able to get access to them. But if you're not for any reason, then you can also just contact anybody else from the Saya Health team. You can contact Shahir, you can contact me, you can contact anybody else whose contact you have. Yeah. So if it's a friend calls you and says that there's somebody over here who's saying that they're they want to commit suicide, that they've been talking about it, or if someone calls you and shares something about a friend and you see warning signs in that friend, again you can alert us and we will alert Aramco. Aramco will go there, they will keep them safe, hopefully be there for them emotionally, and we will try and contact the friend and offer the friend help through the helpline. And we'll stay connected to them. Yeah. Any questions, any comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Ask if we will get any call or the caller is on immediate risk, and he just said I just going to attempt suicide, or I'm so disappointed, like these statements. So what should we do there? We need to be connected with Sarma sir and Ashfaq sir on the same call, or we said that our management just contact you shortly.
So I would say let's go to the next slide. That's going to answer your question. Yeah. So ideally, you keep talking to the person on the call, and if you can, at the same time, alert Sarmad or Ashfaq. At the same time, maybe you pick up your phone, WhatsApp them, or something like that. Then that would be great. Yeah. Otherwise, finish the call, hang up, and then alert them. Yes, somebody else had a question? Okay. So how to respond to someone who says that they are at risk? So if somebody calls you and say they're talking about wanting to die, say they're talking about the life not being worth living anymore, say that they're talking about the fact that they're under a lot of stress and earlier that day they wrote a will for their family, or anything else in which you hear a warning sign. Or maybe somebody calls you and they're very agitated on the phone, they're very angry, they're like maybe cursing, saying things about their boss or some other factor, and you get the feeling that this person is not so in control of themselves right now, that they are in either a significant amount of distress or that their mood is so affected that they could be at harm to themselves. Yeah. First thing you can do is to listen to them, to just talk, to just listen to them like you would normally. Yeah. Because as you talk and as you listen to them, they will keep sharing and you will be able to learn more information that could be crucial for you. Yeah. You will be able to understand if they are at immediate risk of suicide or less immediate, but still at risk of suicide. So you will be able to understand what stage they're at. You will be able to figure out if they've taken any steps towards it. If, you know, how much have they planned? Have they bought a weapon? Where is the weapon? Are they taking some kind of medicine? What is it? What's going on? Right? And maybe they'll also share what the reasons are, why they're under distress. And it's important to also listen to them, to listen, because I mean, firstly, they've called you, right? So they've called you to share their distress, to share their stress, to share their sadness, their worries. And it's really important that you listen, because you know what? That could make a difference. Just that could make a difference. Maybe they feel a little bit better after that phone call. We still have to put our suicide protocol in place, right? We still have to alert Sarmad or Ashfaq. They still need to alert Aramco. We still need to make sure that this person is okay. But we also have to fulfill our role as a helpline professional by listening to them and providing active listening, providing providing empathy, providing respect, showing them that you're there for them. Because they may feel better about their problems after that phone call, just by you being there and just by you listening, and they may change their mind. They may change their mind, or just for that day, they might decide that, okay, maybe things are not so bad, or they might feel a little better and decide not to take the action that day. Yeah. So your talking and listening can be really helpful, really valuable over there. So active listening and the core conditions will always remain there no matter what the phone call is. Yeah. So that's number one. Number two is, if we feel this person is showing signs of mental illness, we need to refer them to a mental health professional. If we feel this person is showing signs of suicide, we need to alert Sarmad. There might be calls where you do all three of the things. You might tell this person to contact a psychologist. You might also refer this person. You might also alert the suicide. You might also take steps towards the suicide protocol. So if you look at the last point on the slide, how you ask the question is as important as what you ask, right? So we have to be really, really, really careful to continue to remain friendly, to continue to remain supportive. We might be feeling panicked because they've shared with us that, you know, that they're thinking about killing themselves, but we should not sound panicked or anxious on the phone. We need to continue to be there for them. Yeah. And be really careful to not tell them that your problems are unimportant, because that might make them feel worse. We have to not be careful to not minimize their problems by saying things. We might be trying to make them feel better, but if we say something like, things aren't so bad, come on. You don't need to attempt suicide. Come on. Why do you want to kill yourself? Things aren't so bad. They might feel that, okay, this other person really doesn't understand how much pain I'm in, right? Or if we say something like, our problems are never as serious as we think they are. This is just, something that you're thinking right now. It's not so bad. It's never as serious as we think. That again could feel, okay, this person does not really understand what I'm going through. They might not continue to talk to you on the phone. They want to feel understood. People always want to feel like the other person understands how bad it is for me, or validates my experience, gives significance to my experience, says that yes, you are in pain. Yes, things are bad for you right now. I can really tell that you're feeling bad and I'm sorry. Yeah. We don't want to be judgmental or criticizing. Don't talk like that. It's foolish. What we do want to ask, especially when, when we hear that there is immediate risk, right? So if the person tells you that I wrote a letter for my family that I'm going to give them once I'm no longer here, or I don't have any hope to be alive anymore and I want to be dead, and I bought a gun today, or when you hear any of the warning signs for immediate risk, you can go ahead and ask any one of these questions. So are you thinking of suicide? And they may not trust you enough to tell you yes right now. Okay. But it's important for us to ask. The next question, have you thought about suicide in the last 2 months? Yeah. So if they're not, they don't trust you enough, or they don't feel comfortable enough to share that they're currently in the planning stages, they might let you know that they have thought about it in the last 2 months. They might be more willing to share that. And then you again know that this person is at high risk, right? This person is at high risk. They've thought about it in the past. And right now, things that they're saying are making me feel that they're at immediate risk again. So there's high chances that this person is going to attempt suicide. And if they still say no, we can also ask if they've ever attempted. Have you ever attempted to kill yourself? Because if someone has made an attempt in the past, at any point in their life, already they're at a higher risk of doing it again. Yeah. Any questions, any comments, anything at all?
Just have a comment.
Yes, right?
Yeah, maybe this will not be applicable for everyone. It's maybe because it's just for me. But you know what? When you are already in that situation, you were saved by I don't know who. So when you tried attempting to kill yourself and you were saved by maybe by that, I don't think you would still um, try to do it one more time because you've been there. Because it's too difficult actually. Because when I do it, I was like comatose for 7 days. So I was like um, sleeping for 7 days. So I didn't know. So it was the doctor already told my parents that it's just about her. It's for her to fight for her. So she's already good. She's just ready. She just had surgery. Out of nowhere.
Sorry, Sherry. I'm really sorry, but I can't understand what you're saying.
Can you hear me?
Let's try a few more words.
Yeah. What I'm actually trying to say is that if you already attempted to kill yourself, you will not do it again. On my case, because it's really difficult on doing comatose for 7 days on someone, and then I was on a dark place, so I will never do it ever because of the experience that I had. So for some that might have done it, that they might done it again, and maybe they haven't experienced what I have experienced before, being in the dark. So I'm not gonna do it. So that's what I wanted to share with you.
Thank you, Sherry. And that's a really, firstly, thank you for sharing your experience. Yeah. And secondly, I think that's a really lovely example or explanation for the word risk, right? So risk means that the chances are higher. It does not mean that this is definitely going to happen, right? I mean, someone might say to you that I wrote my will today and they might be under a lot of stress. So we might say this is a sign that they're at immediate risk, but we could still be, it could still be that this person isn't actually thinking about suicide, right? That's why we say that the chances are higher, but it's not always going to be the case. Yeah? Anybody else want to say anything? So I want to very quickly wrap up. This has been a very heavy and a long session, and I intend to drive home some of these points and learnings in our supervision session. So don't worry too much about understanding everything. You know, so this is also the first line that Saya Health, so first time that Saya Health is running a helpline. So we're also learning with you guys. So there's that. Yeah. So if someone, okay, my Azan has stopped now. So I'll just read out the big headings. Your comment from Faria, it's quite difficult to ask question, are you thinking of suicide? When we ask question from caller, when we feel the risky sign in caller, yes, we only ask that question if we feel that they're at immediate risk. Yeah. We have to be very careful, because if they are under a severe amount of stress, but they haven't yet thought about suicide, we don't want to be the reason why they now start thinking about it. So we only ask if there is immediate risk, right? It's very sensitive, very delicate.
Yes, very sensitive.
But it's also like going back to our very first slide, it's important that we do ask, because what if they are willing to share and tell us, yeah, actually I bought a gun today and this is where it's sitting, and then we can intervene and prevent that from happening. But if we don't ask, then we'll never know.
Yes. And these questions are also help for the caller to open up and share his feelings, that what he feel presently, or what he have the conditions, the internal conditions. So from these questions, they might be share their feelings.
Exactly. Thank you guys. You guys are, you know, it's really nice for me to hear how much you've learned and how much you understand your roles. Okay. So very important. We are working with a heavy duty staff. We have a part to play. We're taking on responsibility, partial responsibility in someone's life, right? It's really big. And then the stuff always touches on our own personal experiences. It brings up past feelings from personal experiences. So there's a lot going on. It really can take an emotional toll on us. So what is crucial to remember so that we can keep ourselves healthy and we can continue to perform the jobs that we do. Yeah, is number one. Just gonna minimize this so I can see it. So in this era of being asked to do more and more with fewer and fewer staff and less time, being able to prioritize essential versus less important tasks is a necessary skill for everyone. So this is something I'm definitely working on and learning to do. I can't do it all. I have to decide which things I want to do, except that I can't do the others. Yeah. So managing our workload so that we don't burn out. So we don't get overwhelmed by stress. Number two, having a healthy lifestyle. So a good balance between work and personal life, yes, but also remembering to keep practicing stress management techniques that we talked about, right? So keep up your crochet and your stitching and your physical exercise and your cooking and your baking and your gardening, and keep your pets around and play with your kids, not just be mothers to your kids, but play with your kids and talk to your friends and whatever else that makes you feel better and good and takes the stress off of you. Very, very, very important. Cannot emphasize this enough. It's, it's like one of the responsibilities that come with being someone that works in a mental health space. And actively do things to take care of yourself. Like I've shared with you guys that I do yoga and meditation, something I have to do. And not just that, there are so many things that you have to do. I try to go into nature on the weekend, or I try to just go listen to some music somewhere, just de-stress, disconnect. Yeah? Really important. I have a plant that I've added here on my desk, just so that I can feel, there's some little bit of it. It's uplifting. It brings me positivity, right? It's important to keep adding those things to your life. And self-awareness. So really, really, really important to, again, also be aware of your own stressors, your own issues, your own biases, your own opinions, because they can affect how we respond to a person who is calling us, right? We should not have blind spots, right? So we might think and feel a certain way, but as long as we know, okay, I have a very strong opinion about this, as long as we know, then we know that it can affect how we handle a particular situation. So if I give an example, I feel strongly about men abusing women. So if I'm working with a man who is abusing a woman, or a woman who's being abused by a man, or any man and any woman, then I need to be aware that that can affect how I will deal with this case, right? I might feel more sensitive. I might want to take one person's side over the other, or I may feel more angry around this person. Whatever it is, I need to be aware so that I can be prepared, yeah, for the situation, so that it doesn't change the way I handle the situation. Or if it's changing the way I handle the situation, that's fine. Recognize it and get support. Maybe say, I can't deal with this caller. I need to give this caller to somebody else, tell the person that, can you please give me a few moments? Someone from my team is going to call you right back. Yeah. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I have a wow in the chat box. I don't know what the wow is about.
For plants.
All right, then we have information. This is the last slide to share with families and friends. So because we've had callers call and ask about their friends, it might happen again. This is information that we can give to them. You can say that, you know, your friend deserves to feel better, your friend deserves to be healthy. You can support the person who's calling, say, you know, or like acknowledge them, validate them. You did the right thing by calling, appreciate them. Saying that, you know, suicide or mental illness, yes, it's an illness, but treatment exists. And, you know, sometimes family members can feel really responsible, especially parents or friends can feel like, you know, I wasn't a good enough friend to this person. That's why they're considering suicide. So just giving them reassurance that, look, you didn't cause it, it's not your fault. You know? If you feel it's appropriate, if you feel that you have the knowledge yourself, you can also share basic information regarding mental illness or suicide with them. You can tell them that you don't have to cope with this alone, right? That you can seek support from other people as well. There are professionals that are out there, and there are many other services that you can use to help yourself. You don't have to go through it alone. So similarly, I'll give you an example. Like one of my therapy clients is recently suffering from addiction. He's recently started abusing drugs. And my supervisor said to me, you know, I was trying to handle it all on my own, and it was getting to be a lot, and it was affecting the work. Actually, I was feeling a certain way about it. My client was feeling a certain way about it. And my supervisor said to me that you have to work in a team. This is a very big thing. You can't take it on your own. You have to involve another specialist as well. You guys need to work in a team. You keep addressing the emotional aspect, and this get in an addiction specialist, and they will address the addiction aspect. You can't do it all on your own. So it's really, really important to seek support. Even professionals take support from other professionals. Yeah. So you can tell the family members that, like, you know, there are professionals out there, there are other services out there. You don't have to go on it alone. Give contact information on local organizations providing support and treatment. So here, obviously, this person, if they've called the helpline, they already have that information. You can give them the information also of the online counseling portal. Any other kind of support services that you know of, you can give that to them. Other families or friends may be well informed about mental illnesses, but would likely be working through one of the 5 stages of grief. So this is very important. Yeah, so when it's your close family or your close friend, it affects you directly, you know? So you could very well be going through something yourself. You could be in a place of denial. Currently, you don't have the ability to believe that your friend or family member is in this place, right? You just don't have the ability to believe it. You could be in that place, or you could be really, really, really angry at them for considering suicide or getting to the point where they're mentally ill. You know, they could be going through the anger stage. And this is just a natural process that people go through when they are affected by things. Or you could be so sad that you're not really able to help them right now. So just remain mindful, be aware. Sometimes we can feel frustrated with a family member because they're not getting involved enough, but just keep in mind that they could be going through their own process. And I think that's about it. We've gone a bit over time. Any questions, any comments, anything at all? You guys have been amazing. Thank you for staying this entire time and, you know, contributing to the discussion. Yeah. Some of the material is really heavy, and some of you are feeling emotional. So again, I'm here if you want to stay and chat for a few minutes afterwards. Yeah, and any questions, comments are welcome. And if anybody wants to leave, you are welcome to leave now as well. So thank you.
I'll stop the recording.
Stop the recording as well.